Dopamine is a powerful chemical in the brain. It acts as a messenger, transmitting signals between neurons. While often called the pleasure molecule, dopamine's primary role is not about pleasure itself. Instead, it's about the anticipation of pleasure, the desire, the wanting. Dopamine is released in anticipation of rewards. This creates a feeling of motivation, pushing us towards those rewards. Think of it like this: dopamine is the engine, and the reward is the fuel. A famous experiment with rats perfectly illustrates this. Scientists implanted electrodes in the brains of rats, specifically targeting the areas associated with dopamine release. These rats were given a lever. When pressed, the lever stimulated the electrode, flooding their brains with dopamine. The rats quickly became obsessed. They would press the lever repeatedly, neglecting even basic needs like food and water. This demonstrated the potent effect of dopamine on motivation. The rats were driven by the anticipation of reward, even when the reward was simply a surge of dopamine. The experiment didn't stop there. In a fascinating twist, scientists then blocked the release of dopamine in the rats. The results were striking. The rats became lethargic and unmotivated. They no longer had the desire to press the lever, even though the possibility of a dopamine rush remained. This further cemented dopamine's role in driving motivation and desire. This brings us to the darker side of dopamine addiction. When we engage in pleasurable activities, our brains release dopamine. This feels good, so we're inclined to repeat the behavior. However, with repeated exposure, the brain adapts. It becomes less sensitive to dopamine, requiring more and more of it to achieve the same level of pleasure. This is known as tolerance. This adaptation is at the heart of addiction. Drugs, for example, flood the brain with dopamine, creating a surge of pleasure. Over time, the brain adjusts to these high levels, leading to tolerance and dependence. The individual needs more of the drug to experience the same high. This cycle can spiral out of control, leading to addiction. It's not just drugs that can hijack this system. Many everyday activities trigger significant dopamine release. Social media, video games, pornography, these all provide quick hits of dopamine, making them highly engaging and potentially addictive. The constant notifications, likes, and rewards keep us hooked in a cycle of seeking that next dopamine rush. So how do we regain control of our dopamine levels and break free from these addictive cycles? One increasingly popular method is the dopamine detox. This involves consciously abstaining from activities that trigger high dopamine release for a set period. This might mean taking a break from social media, video games, or anything else that you suspect is hijacking your dopamine system. The goal of a dopamine detox is to reset your brain's reward system. By abstaining from high dopamine activities, you allow your brain to become more sensitive to dopamine again. This can help break the cycle of craving and reduce feelings of dependence. It's important to note that a dopamine detox is not about deprivation. It's about regaining control and finding healthier sources of pleasure and motivation. During a dopamine detox, it's essential to engage in activities that promote relaxation and mindfulness. Spending time in nature, practicing meditation, or simply engaging in quiet reflection can help calm the mind and reduce cravings. Remember, boredom is not the enemy. It's an opportunity for your brain to reset and for you to reconnect with simpler pleasures. The key to a healthy relationship with dopamine is balance. It's not about eliminating dopamine entirely. That's impossible and undesirable. Instead, it's about being mindful of the activities that trigger dopamine release and ensuring they don't control our lives. Connect with activities that benefit you in the long run. Focus on intrinsic motivation, the joy of the activity itself, rather than external rewards. This could be anything from pursuing a hobby to learning a new skill to spending time with loved ones. These activities might not provide the same instant gratification as a social media notification, but they offer deeper, more sustainable forms of satisfaction. Remember, you are in control. By understanding how dopamine works, you can make conscious choices that support your well-being and lead to a more fulfilling life.